Start. Sanjay will start. Yeah.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah. Okay, please.
Namaste, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Welcome everyone for the 78th session of this new series we call the Foundational Texts of Hindu Philosophy. My sincere thanks to Swami Tattwamayanandaji as well for enlightening us over so many lectures and so many aspects of the Hindu philosophy. And prior to that, as many of you know, we covered many other texts. The reason, once again, highlighting that is we have a small change of guard. Prajwal, who is at Stanford, has finished his PhD and now embarked on a postdoctoral studies in Baltimore. So he's moving out of Stanford, moving out of the valley. But having said that, we are in the good hands of Naman Gupta, who has also been a devotee of Vedanta Society even before he joined Stanford. He will be moderating going forward from August 25th. And as many of you may not be aware, these lectures, Vedanta Society under the guidance of Swami Tattwamayanandaji now, and prior to that, Swami Vedanandaji, have been delivering these Vedanta lectures at Stanford for over 2 decades now. So now, during the pandemic, we made it online. That was also an opportunity to combine what we used to call South Bay lectures. Swamiji was kind enough to travel on Saturday evenings to give lectures at some locations in South Bay, but now we have combined that as well. And over the past year, the audience has grown to India, to Australia, Asia, and many parts of the world. So it is wonderful to see so many devotees coming and making benefit. So with that as a background, there are a couple of logistics that I wanted to highlight. Many of you would have saved a Zoom link, bookmarked it. So starting next Sunday, there will be a new Zoom link. I'm going to share that in the chat out here. This will mostly be applicable to the people who join on Zoom. The YouTube, people who attend on YouTube, it's still the same. So the Zoom link will be updated. I'll make a note on the chat. Please check that on Zoom and save it and bookmark it. Just for next week, make sure you check our website last minute, sfvedanta.org, if there is any last minute change in the Zoom link. And I also request all of you, those who are on YouTube as well as on Zoom, to join the WhatsApp group if you're on WhatsApp, because that way it can be live communication on last minute changes. I will put that WhatsApp link on the Zoom chat. However, YouTube does not allow us to put that link on the chat there, they delete it. Because of that, maybe Shashi, I will request, we'll put that on the website as well. And that WhatsApp group is one way only. There will not be many traffic. It's only for announcement from the admin, which happens to be me at this time. So there is no noise. So you're assured of that. So with those logistics in place, this will be the last lecture, I would say, with Prajwal as the host. Next week, we'll have Naman taking over. And but there's not much change other than logistics. Once again, welcome to these Sunday evening lectures. Let's make sure we communicate this to more people who are interested. The attendance is increasing. Kindly like the YouTube video and forward the WhatsApp messages for people who can join. With that, Swamiji, back to you to continue the lectures today.
Thank you, Sanjay. And I should also thank Prajwal, who carried on this program, who helped us to carry on this program for so many years. Now a new student, he is a PhD student in Stanford. He will be assisting us with all these details. And as usual, Sanjay will be active and Bobby Coleman will be the main motivator for those who have some hesitation to ask questions. So Bobby Coleman also will be very active in all our sessions, and Sanjay also. And I'm requesting Shashi to put this new link in our website, savedanta.org. Thank you. Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namah. So we are continuing our discussion on Ramanuja philosophy. There are just a few important points that I want to mention in this context as the beginning of this session. One important aspect of my exposition of Advaita, Visishtadvaita and Dvaita, and in the coming sessions we'll be discussing other systems of Vedanta philosophy, like the schools of Dimbarka, Vallabha, Baladeva, that is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's system, and so on. Something very interesting and very important point to keep in mind is Advaita appears to be the most relevant and most acceptable school of Vedanta philosophy for our times. And one important reason, which was incidentally mentioned by Bobby Coleman in the last session during his interaction, Advaita is a tremendous moral imperative because it asks you, it helps you to look at the entire creation as the expression of one spiritual reality. There is the presence of the divine in everyone and in everything. So this universal aspect of Advaita makes it more relevant. It does not mean that other systems are irrelevant or they are insignificant, not at all. The point is, Advaita includes within it all other systems of philosophy. This all-inclusiveness actually existed even thousands of years before Advaita philosophy was put in place as a compact philosophical metaphysical system by Shankaracharya in 8th century AD. In fact, you have to remember, when you talk about the Vedic tradition, of which Advaita is the finest fruit, we have to keep in mind there were close interactions between ancient India and ancient Greece at the philosophical and also the cultural level. So even before the great well-known Greek philosopher belonging to the 7th century BC, Thales, it is said that there were close interaction, intellectual and cultural and spiritual interaction between the ancient Greece and India. There is a well-known quotation, a quote from Brihad Samhita, which belongs to 7th century BC. That means the work must have come into existence almost around the same time when the earliest well-known Greek philosopher lived in Greece, Thales. So there is a statement in the Brihad Samhita that is very interesting to understand the meaning of Advaita, the significance of Advaita, the antiquity and also the continuity of Advaita. He says, Mlechahi yavanasteshu samyak shastramidam sthidam rishivat tebi pujyande kim punaka devavid dvijaka. This statement from it is from Brihad Samhita by a well-known astrologer and astronomer of ancient India. His name was Varaha Mihira. One of the most well-known astronomer of ancient times in India was this great, and he was a sage and a saint. And he says, this among the Yavanas also, the word Yavana was used in the sense of people who lived outside Indian subcontinent and who were also highly cultured and highly exalted, highly evolved. Such people used to be called Yavanas. Primarily, the word was used to refer to the ancient Greeks, Macedonians. So, Mlechahi Yavanas Teshu Samyak Shastramidam Sthidam. even among the great Greek thinkers, there were these traditions of great philosophical, spiritual, metaphysical heritage. Rishivat tevi pujante, te api rishivat pujante. They are also to be honored as much as the great sages of ancient India. Now, what it shows is the antiquity and the all-inclusive nature of Vedic tradition. Because remember, the most important statement in the Rigveda Samhita is, that is, Ekam Sat Vipra Bagudha Vadanti. And that is the essence of Advaita. So, now Advaita philosophy is the direct descendant of the direct hair, the hair of the continuation of this all-inclusive Vedic philosophy. Now, any system of philosophy which takes an entirely different perspective, diametrically opposite to Advaita, will be deficient to that extent. So, I already mentioned this earlier. In the Madhva system, there is this concept of this intrinsic, ultimate difference between everyone and everything in this world. And one important argument in defense of this, what we call Sarupa Bheda, means the intrinsic, ultimate and fundamental distinction and difference between different objects in this world and between different living beings in this world, Panchabheda, and the eternal difference between God and the world and also different living beings. So this fivefold distinctions already described. I already mentioned this and expounded many times the earlier sessions, Panchabheda Siddhanta. It is based on one fundamental doctrine which Madhvacharya put forward in his Anuvyakyanam. So according to Madhvacharya, the reason why the 7 or 8 billion people living on this planet behave differently, respond differently to different experiences, why they act differently, why they think differently, why they speak differently. So this difference is because each of them is essentially different from everyone else. This is his important theory. If you accept Advaita, Madhvacharya will tell you, then all the 8 billion people in this world should act in a very uniform manner, without any distinction. Should think, act, will be equally good or bad or neutral. So there are differences. Every man, every woman is different from every other man or woman in thinking. Even in the same family you find differences. So what does it show? The doctrine of reincarnation based on the transference of karma from one life cycle to another life cycle will not explain this completely. Madhvacharya says this in his Anuvyakyanam. So also, according to him, as I mentioned, doctrine of this transference of karma from one life cycle to another cycle, that means doctrine of reincarnation, it also is not enough to explain as to why you should all use your individuality and should become one with Brahman. So, as Advaitins say, Madhvacharya is trying to refute Advaita. So, he says that every individual being is different from every other individual being. There is this ultimate, intrinsic, fundamental distinction. It's called Sarupa Bheda by its very nature. This is a very, very important point which Madhvacharya makes. So, he calls it Anadi Sarupa Yogida Bhedaha. Anadi Sarupa Yogida Bheda. It's a very important issue. I already explained this earlier based on this fundamental principle of Jiva Bheda, and also Bheda between different objects, Bheda or difference between Jiva and Ishvara, Veda between different objects and Ishvara, and distinction or difference between different, between Jiva and also different objects. So whatever difference you can conceive of, if you analyze the absolute reality on the basis of this Tattvatraya, Ishvara or God, and the empirical world and different objects, and then the third factor, individual jivas. They are entirely different from each other. So this is an important point, remember. To understand this, you can perhaps you can refer to some of the related doctrines found in Ramanuja's philosophy. So this is important. Now there is a reason why Madhvacharya strongly felt the need to evolve a new system of philosophy when already there was a system of philosophy which is trying to refute Advaita. So we have to remember the historic timeline. Shankaracharya in the 8th century AD, Ramanujacharya in the 11th century, and Madhvacharya maybe 12th century, more or less. So Shankaracharya came in the 8th century, Ramanuja again felt the need to evolve a system of philosophy which is a compromise between Advaita of Shankara and Dvaita of Madhvacharya. Ramanuja's system can be called some kind of an Advaita, but is conditioned Advaita, the Visishta Advaita. I mean Chit Achit Visishtam. There is no doubt the reality is one, but that reality is present, inherent, antaryami, indweller in all living beings. So in that respect, there is this identity. So there is Advaita. But still, a jiva cannot be the same as Brahman or Ishvara. Because Ishvara is omniscient, all-knowing, is capable of creating this world, he preserves this world. All these qualities cannot be attributed to jiva. So there is a fundamental difference, but there is also an element of identity and non-difference. So it's called Visishta Advaita. Madhvacharya took an entirely different line from Ramanuja and Madhvachankara both. So Madhvacharya took a totally different, and his system can be called a polar opposite of Advaita. So it is called Dvaita. Now when it comes to action, human endeavor and its result, there are some interesting doctrines put forward by some of the great Visishta philosophers. Of course, they are not so well known as Venkatanatha, that is Vedanta Desika, Sudarshana Surya and others, but still their contributions are significant towards explaining many of the tenets of Visishta. One of them is Meghanadari Guru, it's called Meghanadari Guru. And he wrote some books. Unfortunately, some of his books are not available in printed form. They are still to be found as manuscripts in important libraries. Nyaya Prakashika, Nyaya Dhyumani, all these books. So according to this scholar, who appeared between Ramanuja and the later philosophers of Ramanuja systems, in a way his place is not as important as that of either Venkatanatha or Sudarshana Suri. Venkatanatha was the great commentator of Ramanuja's books. Sudarshana Suri is well known because of his great commentary, Sudhi Prakashika. It's an important commentary on Ramanuja's Sri Bhashya. So according to this scholar, Meghanadari, he threw some important ideas. He throws light on, he elaborates some of the important doctrines of Ramanuja, especially with regard to karma. For example, he says, our actions and the result, they are entirely a gift coming from God. So according to God's satisfaction or dissatisfaction, if your actions please God, He will give you a good result. If your actions do not please God, He may not give a satisfactory result. So even our samskaras, our impressions, our tendencies, all these are essentially a gift from God. In other words, there is some kind of a, unfortunately, some kind of a fatalism, or what you call a total surrender to God. Now this should be understood in the light of Advaita and his concept of karma. Then only you will understand the significance of these different systems, philosophy, especially with regard to karma. Advaita tells you that if you do your duty, and whatever that duty may be, not necessarily spiritual responsibility, spiritual duty, worshipping in a temple, praying in a temple, or some kind of ritualistic forms of spiritual activity, or even your secular activity. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita, the activity that Arjuna was supposed to be involved was not necessarily a spiritual activity. He was a soldier under the pay of a king, and he was supposed to, his duty was to protect the poor, the weak, the women folk, and the children. He was practically some kind of a security man who is paid by the government, policeman who is standing guard in a school. So that was Arjuna's position. And Krishna asked him to convert that activity into a kind of worship. So this, see, so it means tasma yoga yujyasva. Now you do your duty, do it as a yoga. So if we can do our duty, whatever that duty may be, remember this such a broad interpretation of karma cannot be found in either Ramanuja or Madhva systems. Because in Ramanuja system there is this insistence of complete surrender, that is prapatti, surrendering everything to God and waiting for a happy result. And there again, so you can see some kind of a God who can be unpredictable. You can imagine in many traditions, God is sometimes, he plays pranks. Sometimes he becomes unpredictable, like children crying, asking for more. So you never know what this God will do to you. You are doing everything wonderful, but that may not please him. But Advaita tells you, you don't have to worry about whether you are pleasing God or displeasing him. You do your duty with a sense of sanctity and sacredness. That may be cooking in the kitchen, working in a factory, maybe working in a field, teaching in a university, treating patients in a hospital, whatever may be. Do that with a sense of detachment and sanctity and sacredness. And that becomes your road leading to the highest spiritual enlightenment. This is a very important principle to keep in mind. But both in Madhva and Ramanuja system, and also in all other succeeding systems of non-Advaitic philosophy of Vedanta, whether it is Nimbarka or Vallabha, or even, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's system, Vallabha. Baladeva wrote this commentary on Brahma Sutras in Chaitanya school. He laid the foundation, the metaphysical foundation for Chaitanya's school of philosophy. So there is always this important fact of a God who may be capricious, unpredictable. You have to please him, you have to be in his good books. So that's one of the reasons why Advaita appears to be so rational. Because here, of course, you should believe in God, you can pray, you can worship, you can meditate, all wonderful. But suppose you cannot do, you are not interested in doing that, sit in your home, do your duty properly, with a sense of sanctity and sacredness, total application, with total detachment. And that so-called secular activity becomes a spiritual activity. So that is one important difference between karma as understood in Advaita and karma as understood in non-Advaitic systems, especially non-Advaitic Vaishnava systems of Vedanta philosophy. Karma and karma phala, good and bad, it result, what happens to you as a result of your activity, very noble activity, depends upon whether God is happy with you or not. But in Advaita, of course, you can pray to God, but you don't have to worry about displeasing a God, because you are doing everything with a pure heart. Karmanishthayaha chitta shuddhidvarena purusharthakedutvam na swatantrena jnananisthadu swatantrena purusharthakeduhu anyan apeksha. So I am giving some of these examples to highlight the rational aspect of why Advaita is so acceptable to modern rational people, even agnostics and modern thinkers. So that's one of the reasons, because it's sense of spiritual freedom and absence of a capricious God from whom you you have to express something, maybe the worst consequences, though you may be doing everything wonderful, the God could be unhappy. So that kind of problem doesn't exist in Advaita. Of course, so this is one important thing. Another very important, just to give an example, another important philosopher belonging to Ramanuja system, also, he's called Vatsya Varada. So Vatsya Varada Guru he is called. Actually, he also throws some additional light on Ramanuja's concept of karma. According to him, we should study the Vedic text, but you need not worry about the meaning of Vedic text. What it means is, so of course I have to explain this further. The topic is this: the Vedic Karma Kanda contains a lot of injunctions for performing rituals, like Agnihotra, Vachapeya, Atiratra, many different rituals. You should perform this ritual. And the purpose of performing the rituals is to go to heaven. Heaven here means living a happy life. In a very, very hedonistic, a very, very bohemian sense, it is a kind of happy life in heaven, where everything is wonderful. So you should perform these rituals as mentioned in the injunctions or vidhis. But you need not worry so much about inquiring the meaning of this Vedic text. And just read and perform a ritual. Now, according to Ramanuja, one should practice these rituals, and also after that, after finishing that stage, you can inquire into the ultimate nature of reality. After Dharma Jijnasa, in Mimamsa, Purva Mimamsa, you should go to Brahma Jijnasa in Uttara Mimamsa. That means, first you should be fully established in the performance of all rituals. And then you should go for higher intellectual metaphysical inquiry. What is the ultimate purpose of human life? But you cannot do that without first performing all these rituals. This is what Ramanuja says. And of course, Ramanuja's Brahma Sutra Bhashya is linked to an earlier book called Bodhayana Vritti, which Ramanuja got a copy of Bodhayana Vritti in Kashmir before writing his Bhashya on Brahma Sutras. Now, to understand Shankaracharya here, so because you can understand the true position of Ramanuja and Madhvacharya only in the context of Shankaracharya. Again, remember, we should never say, we should never even indirectly imply that Ramanuja was wrong or Madhvacharya was wrong. They were not wrong, they were absolutely correct. Absolutely correct for certain times and for certain ages, for certain people. That's a very important point, remember. In India's Vedantic tradition, you can never say that any system of philosophy is wrong or it is bad. Never. So, in fact, for that there is the great statement coming from Gaudapada in his Gaudapada Karika. Susiddhanta vyavasthasu dvaitino nichidadridam parasparam viruddhinte taihi ayamna viruddhite. Any system of philosophy which is not Advaita. So Dvaita here never means Madhva system, because Madhvacharya lived in 12th century, and Gaudapada, who wrote this in Gaudapada Karika, he lived in 6th century, 600 years earlier. So Gaudapada says, when he uses the word Dvaitins, what he is talking about is those who are different from Advaita. The problem is non-Advaitins is they may find fault with other systems of philosophy. That's the only difference. But Advaita never tells anyone that he is wrong, or that he should change all his ways, that he should convert himself into something totally different because what is now following is wrong. No. So that's why Advaitins never quarrel with anyone, because according to Advaita, nobody is wrong. One may be incomplete in his understanding. One may be imperfect in his understanding. And that's because he has yet to evolve and go a long distance to reach the highest state of enlightenment. But you can never say that he is wrong. Nobody can be wrong in the light of Advaita. You may be incomplete, you may be lopsided, but you can never be entirely wrong. So according to Shankaracharya, so you can see the rationale behind Advaita. Shankaracharya says, suppose you have performed a lot of rituals in your previous life or in this life, and you have enjoyed a lot of great things in heaven, all right, then you feel that this is enough. How much money can I acquire? How much status can I aspire for? It's not that I don't need any of these things. So at that time, you don't have to again continue your search for more prosperity, more wealth, and more heavenly comforts. Then you can give up all this and think, what is actually the truth behind human existence? Is there a higher goal in human life than just seeking prosperity, health, progeny, and so on? So at that time, you can go give up all this, and you can ask this question: what's the ultimate meaning of existence? Adhado Brahma Jignasa. So remember, Jaimini's Purvamimamsa Sutra is Adhado Dharma Jignasa. What is my duty? How should I perform my rituals? That is the first sutra, Jaimini. Badarayana Sutra, Vedanta Sutras, Brahma Sutras, Adhado Brahma Jignasa. Now begins the inquiry into the ultimate truth of existence, a search for the realization of the absolute reality, ultimate truth. So that inquiry can begin even when you are an infant. There are many infants who are wiser than many old people. There are many old people who are less knowledgeable and in fact comparatively stupid compared to many infants. So suppose you become a philosopher, you cannot ask Aristotle, you should eat chocolate candies every day morning. He is not interested. But a child may be interested in it. So Shankaracharya says, those who are born with a strong sense of renunciation, with a strong sense of spiritual inquiry into the ultimate truth, for them, their spiritual life, spiritual inquiry can begin any day, any moment when they feel a kind of renunciation. That's why Shankaracharya's system relied upon certain important mantras in some of the ancient Upanishads. They are not among the most well-known Upanishads, 10 or 11 Upanishads which were commented upon by Shankaracharya, including Shvedashvatara. Vajrasujika Upanishad, Narada Parivrajika Upanishad. There are quite a few Upanishads, ancient Vedic texts, which tell you, Yet akareva virajit, tad akareva pravrajit. The day, the moment you feel, I don't want any more money, wealth or status. Enough for me. I don't want any of this. I want to know the ultimate truth behind human life and existence. So, you may be a child, you may be a boy, or you may be an old man. When any day, any moment, when you feel this sense of renunciation, that may be the result of several life cycles of spiritual evolution, because you have done a lot of wonderful things in the past, and in this life you are born with an inborn sense of renunciation. Then you won't go after chocolates, you don't go after high-paying jobs, you don't go and join for an MBA in Stanford. What do? Enough. You go to the library. If you may be in modern, you may take a book on Plato, Aristotle, or of course, at Paul Brunton was not a very old man, but he was not a young man either. Some who accidentally he happened to hear the name and maybe some teachings of Ramana Maharshi. Not a very important book. Books were not available at that time. Just some articles he must have read, and that was enough for him. Oh, here is something more than what I was looking for till now. And he takes a ship and goes to India. So this is the genius of Advaita. That's why Advaita includes in it both Ramanuja and also Madhvacharya. Advaita does not contradict the Ramanuja and Madhva. Advaita accommodates within it both Ramanuja and Madhva systems. So this is a very important point to remember. Again, so according to Ramanuja system, especially this, Vatsya Varada Guru, called Varadacharya, he is a very, very important, a great saintly person belonging to Sri Vaishnava system. So they always insisted on performing the path of dharma and avoiding the path of dharma. Following the path of dharma and avoiding anything that has to do with adharma. Strictly following the ethical, moral path of dharma and diligently avoiding any kind of deviation into adharma. So now, when you talk about Advaita, the ultimate goal of Advaita is to go beyond dharma and adharma. What does it mean? Going beyond adharma, what does it mean? It means when you are already established in the highest spiritual realization, then you cannot, even by accident, you cannot deviate into adharma. It's a very important point. Suppose you have to watch yourself. I should be very careful because I may tell a lie any moment. That means there is always a chance and a possibility that you may tell a lie. That's why you have to be alert all the time to avoid telling a lie. But suppose you reach a state of spiritual evolution where it becomes psychologically impossible for you to tell a lie, then you don't have to be alert all the time to avoid telling a lie, because even by accident you cannot tell a lie. Like that, a Brahmajnani, an over Brahman according to Advaita, becomes established in Brahman, Brahmaiva Bhavati, Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati. An over Brahman becomes one with Brahman itself. So even by accident, you cannot deviate into adharma. So that's why, so the meaning of the Charama Sloka Bhagavad Gita according to Ramanuja and according to Shankara. So very revealing. According to Ramanuja, Sarvadharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Braja Aham Tva Sarva Bhabebhyo Mokshayishyami Masjay. It's a very important statement from the Sri Vaishnava point of view. Suppose you try all other paths, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Raj Yoga, everything you practice. Still, you are not able to get fully established in Bhakti. Then what do? You leave everything to God. Prapatti. Anugulyesya sankalpaka pradigulyesya varjanam dashyasya vishwasa goptatva varanam tasa atmanikshepaka arpanne shadvidha sharanakati. So you have to have a strong sense of clinging to what is appropriate for bhakti, for prapatti, and avoiding that which is inappropriate, and then accepting God as your sole protector, complete dependence upon God, and a feeling that you are a kripana, karpanya, means you are a destitute, you are totally in a helpless state. So Atma Niksheba, you completely self-surrender, you practice self-surrender to God. This is the highest, this is a hotline to spiritual realization in the Ramanuja system. Very high level of prapatti. You can find this in the life of many of the saints of medieval times, where they were doing everything in the name of Jesus. You can find in other devotional philosophical traditions, where a devotee starts doing everything in the name of God. It is a kind of prapatti or saranagati. This is Ramanuja system. But according to Shankaracharya, you know what it means? It means when you go beyond the dharma-adharma equation, you reach a point where you don't have to worry about deviating into adharma. Because even if you want to tell a lie, you cannot tell a lie. Even if you want to practice adharma, you cannot do that, because you transcend that empirical level. So, at that time, you become one with Brahman. So, this is a very, very important point, remember. That's why, in one context, Swami Vivekananda, speaking about renunciation, what called sannyasa in the ordinary sense, sannyasa. Swami Vivekananda makes a very, very famous statement. He says something to be kept in mind, has a great significance. Swamiji says, sannyasa is love for the terrible, love of death. You can find such ideas in Vivekananda. This may be worshipping the terrible, love, a liking for the unpleasant. What it means, when you when you develop a liking for something that makes you unhappy, then you can never be unhappy. Because you learn to be happy when a tragedy strikes you. So there is nothing in this world that can really make you unhappy. Because unhappiness itself is transcendent. So that kind of higher transcendence is the ultimate goal of Advaita. That's why Advaita contains in it the prapatti aspect of Ramanuja, and also the concept that find in Madhva system, where everything comes to you, everything given to you as a gift from God, as a result of God's kripa, is grace to you. So this is a very, very important point, remember. That's why I mentioned earlier, it's not a bombastic statement. Sometimes people may interpret that way. Advaita says that Advaita contains in it Ramanuja, Madhva, Vallabha, everyone. That may be totally misunderstood. Why? Because people sometimes misunderstand that Advaita is a system of philosophy. No. Advaita is a state of spiritual experience. Shankaracharya makes it clear in so many places. Gita Bhashya, Brahma Sutra, Upanishad Bhashya, everywhere. And also in the higher Prakarana Granthas, it makes it very, very clear. Advaita is not a system of philosophy. Advaita is a state of spiritual experience. Shankaracharya himself says, he implies in the end of Chatusutri Bhashya, he says, even Aham Brahmasmi experience, Aham Brahmasmi is a mantra that is found in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It's a statement, it's a word, and it's a Sanskrit word. So if somebody tells you, write on a piece of, in a board, blackboard, you write in a big chalk, Aham, I am Brahman. And somebody tells you this is the highest spiritual thing in the world, it makes really no sense. Absolutely not, makes no sense. Far better to have an anthropomorphic God who looks wonderful, who is graceful, apparently very compassionate. So and somebody tells you, very often this misunderstanding is there, that I am Brahman, I am God, that's what Advaita says. No. Actually, Aham Brahmasmi is a state, is actually a statement, is a statement that is trying to explain something that really cannot be explained. It's an important point. Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel makes it very simple. See, the sweetness of sugar, the taste, modern time, the tasteness of something, the taste of something that you eat, it cannot really be explained. But then the word sugar is necessary for us to refer to something which makes sense only when you put it in your mouth. Otherwise, the word sugar doesn't make any sense. Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel, in a very simple language, he says, suppose an almanac, a book predicts that there will be so much of rainfall next month. That almanac is a book. It is a book made from paper, made from pearl, maybe different things which have gone into making the pulp and paper, and it became a book. If you take that book and squeeze it, you don't get one drop of rain. So that rain word, or the almanac which talks about rainfall, is only an attempt to mention something that really makes sense only when you experience it. This is true even in the empirical world, even the ordinary empirical world. So, Aham Brahmasmi is the highest experience in Advaita, but the word, the phrase Aham Brahmasmi itself is not the highest state of experience. The experience denoted by the word, by the phrase, that is the highest state. So, from that point of view, from a spiritual point of view, an Advaitin cannot quarrel with anyone, because he becomes one with everything and everyone, the total transcendence of distinctions and differences. In fact, Madhvacharya has got many wonderful things to say, very interesting to put together in context. This is a well-known book I quoted from this book, Anuvyakyanam. Anadi Yogyadam Chaiva Kali Vanishwara Vidham Ko Nivarayidum Shakyu Yukti Agama Belodhyatam. That's what we say. So the point is, he talks about this cosmic scheme of gradation based on spiritual qualities. Again, the emphasis on distinctions and differences, and not unity and oneness. Very soon we'll conclude discussion of Madhvacharya system, but I want to conclude today. So Madhvacharya says there is a gradation, because according to him, as you remember, if you believe there are 8 billion people living in this world, these 8 billion people represent 8 billion totally different souls, jivas, which are different from each other. They have done different things. Each of them had done some karma in the previous life. They are evolving slowly. There cannot be any distinction. Now, what does Advaitin say? Somebody listening to Madhvacharya may believe this is true after all. It say, even in your own family, 2 persons don't behave in the same manner. In society, people are different. In a nation, people are different. So difference is the reality. Non-difference is just a myth. One may very well conclude. So Advaitins tell you there is a difference. But this difference is only at the empirical level. Behind these differences, there is the spiritual spark, the spiritual reality, the divinity within, Atman and Brahman. That is the same. But then our mind, our thought, our emotions, our feelings and actions, all these are different. So all these actions, thoughts, ideas, we have done different things, different actions, different thoughts. We have done a lot of good and bad things, not at all identical, totally different. So all people have accumulated totally different, absolutely different emotions and feelings, karma, vritti, sankalpa, chakram it is called. Karma samskara vritti sankalpa chakram. Whatever we do, it becomes a tendency, becomes an impression, becomes an aptitude, and accordingly we continue doing things, one life cycle after another, one life cycle, it goes on. So our internal organs called our antakaranas, mana, mind, intellect, system of keeping memory called chittam, and also our sense of identity. All these are different. All vasanas are different, samskaras are different, tendencies are different. But they come and go, they change from time to time. A good samskara can be neutralized by bad samskaras. Bad samskaras can be neutralized by good samskaras. They keep changing. So whatever is changing is real only in the relative sense, is not real in the absolute sense. So their existence is existence only at the vyavaharika level, at the empirical level. At the absolute level, at trans-empirical level, when you think of different living beings as Atman, then these differences do not matter. That is not acceptable to Ramanuja and Madhvacharya. So that's an important point. So whatever the senses perceive, according to Advaita, whatever our mind and senses of perception objectify and perceive, they are not real because our senses perceive that. They are real only in the relative sense, they are not real in the absolute sense. Whatever eyes see, what our ears hear about, all those things change. So whatever is subject to changes cannot be absolutely real, but they are not absolutely unreal either. They are only empirically real, only in the relative sense. They come and go, they keep changing. According to Madhva and Ramanuja, they don't accept this definition that whatever is changing is not absolutely real. They don't accept that. They say whatever is changing is also real, whatever is unchanging is also real. So the difference between the absolute and relative, that difference is not acceptable either Ramanuja or Madhvacharya. So that's an important point to keep in mind. That's why Madhvacharya says, Anadi yogyadam chaiva kalivanishwara vidham ko nivarayidam shakyo yukti agama velodhyadam. What it means is, this cosmic scheme of gradation is this in kind of omnipenetration, he says. They go up and down. Even different celestial beings, when gods and human beings, they also belong to different gradation, different levels. So in other words, the total difference, this emphasis on eternal, intrinsic and ultimate difference between everything and everyone in this world. This is an important philosophy of Madhvacharya. In contrast to this, Shankaracharya says, these differences are there, but they won't be there all the time. Our ultimate goal is to go beyond differences. So when do we go beyond differences? When we go beyond the level of sensory perception, the level of empirical perception. When we think beyond the empirical, beyond the relative, then we can see there is a unifying principle behind all this. That is Atman and Brahman. So that is called Paramarthika Satta, the absolute ultimate reality according to Advaita. Everything else is relative. This distinction is not acceptable either to the followers of Ramanuja or Madhvacharya. That's why they say there is this inherent gradation among all living beings. Some people are permanently destined to reside in hell. Some people are permanently destined to reside in heaven. And some people are in between. So everyone belongs to a specific level of evolution or gradation. This is an interesting aspect of the Madhvacharya system, and we'll conclude in the next session. Now you can have interaction, I am not focusing on the different tattvas and different details of epistemology of Madhva system, because in an online class it may not be very easy for anyone to focus on that, especially when you hear. So it meant for serious students. Now I have some very important announcements before concluding. One is Labor Day retreat. So we have Labor Day retreat, Saturday to Monday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, August 31st, September 1st, September 2nd. And it will be held in Vedanta retreat, Olima, Marin County. So please remember, Labor Day retreat. You can do RSVP by August 25th. Our website, svedanta.org is the website. The topic of discussion is the spiritual journey, and the topic will deal with certain important episodes in some of our spiritual classics. It will not be any kind of academic philosophical session. It will be more or less live, more related to our daily life situations, and related to some challenges that we have to face in our life, and the mystery of reincarnation, how our actions affect our destiny, how we can change our destiny by taking a different perspective towards whatever we do in everyday life. So it is a very important, very life-related, everyday life-related subject, the spiritual journey by Swami Tattwamayananda. Please do RSVP by August 25th at website. Then schedule is Saturday and Sunday. Morning session 10 to 11:30 a.m. Afternoon session 3 to 4:30 p.m. Monday, that is Labor Day, morning session 10 to 11:30 a.m. Each session will be comprised of a talk and Q&A, question answer session. More details will be in separate email and in the September bulletin, as well as on the website. You can find the link to RSVP in our website. So go to our website, svedanta.org, for doing RSVP, and please continue to monitor our website, svedanta.org, for the latest information. So please remember, Labor Day retreat, August 31st, September 1st, September 2nd, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. The retreat will be held in Vedanta retreat in our Olima in Marin County. The topic is spiritual journey. Thank you. Namaskar. If we can have interaction, you are most welcome.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah.
I want to highlight that the new Zoom link has just been posted in the chat. For those who came late to this session, there was an announcement at the start of the session that the Zoom link is changing. I wanted to thank Sanjay and also Prajwal for his services, his hosting, his generosity over the preceding classes. And due to his graduation, the Zoom link is changing. The YouTube live link is remaining the same. So the link has been posted, but do check the Vedanta Society website to confirm that link at sfvedanta.org. And also the Labor Day Retreat RSVP link is going up in the chat. And I forgot what I was going to say, but go ahead, David. I know you're waiting to ask your question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Swami.
Yeah.
The question I have is,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, in one class, did you say that Shetu Ketu was arrogant at first? Or did I misunderstand that? That when he first, that there was one point when you said that he was arrogant in talking, I think, to his mom.
Yeah.
could somebody who was so highly evolved,
Yeah,
something like an Ishwar Koti, I mean, well, why would he have some of those flaws,
yeah.
like arrogance?
Yeah, okay. Shvetaketu is an important character in the Chandogya Upanishad, 6th chapter. The Tattwamayanandaji is expounded, the 6th chapter. Now, the father, Uddalaka, had sent him to Vedic school, far away from his home. So, his son returned when he was 24 years old. He returned home. He was very proud of his learning. That is true, you are right. There are people who have a lot of potential to grow spiritually, but maybe somewhat very arrogant. You can find that. But that arrogance also includes the seed for going beyond that. A strong will, a tenacity, a strong self-confidence. So Uddalaka makes use of those qualities that he found in Shvetaketu. So he doesn't scold him to begin with. He asks him, did you learn that by knowing which everything becomes known? Did you hear about that by hearing about which everything becomes heard? So this question is put to the son. The son he is puzzled. He never heard of such a thing. Which means he had not studied, he had not done a lot of what we call manana, deep thinking. He obviously, no doubt about it, he must have studied those texts. But he never did any deep spiritual contemplation on what he studied, what he read. But this is a very important thing. In spiritual teachings, just listening to the word or reading a book may not go very far, may not go very deep. Very often, when we understand the meaning, then contemplate in solitude, then only its real spiritual significance will become obvious to us. Even intellectually, even if you read a book like, for example, Walden, Thoreau's Walden, I don't say that it is like Upanishads, but there is an element of reflection, contemplation, and a search for higher truth that is present in the thinking and the thought process of Henry Thoreau. It's obvious. He is certainly not a hedonistic, not a bohemian. He is a reflective thinker. Now, if you read it in a very superficial manner, you may think just a wandering man who was moving in the forest, who was interested in the Walden Pond, and he was dissatisfied with the intrusion of modern technology, and that's the impression we may get. But if you go deeper, you find that's the beginning of a search for something higher. So even a book like Walden, which obviously you cannot call it a spiritual book, but there is a deep element of spirituality in that book, no doubt. You cannot compare it with Sermon on the Mount or some of the parables of Christ or the Upanishads, the Gita, no. But still, there is a thinking, reflective mind, a person who is thinking beyond this world, beyond this empirical world of pleasures and enjoyments. A very deep thinker you can find. But that aspect of Walden becomes obvious to you if you read and think. I see. His dislike of this intrusion of modern technology, his dislike of hearing the people practicing military parade in the isolated places. They were preparing for civil war. You can think of those times. His total dislike of this intrusion of modern technology already. But just imagine, one may think it's a primitive man's dislike for modern technology. But actually there is something higher than that. But that later aspect of it becomes obvious to you if you think. It is called manana. That is all the more true when it comes to Upanishads, Gita and other classical, or the Sermon on the Mount. When you think and reflect, go deeper, dig deeper into the meaning of it, then you actually Even intellectually you get much more, you realize there are precious jewels in those words, which you may not fully realize when just you make a superficial reading. So Shvetaketu had read all those Vedic texts, and he had a very high opinion of his own scholarship. So his father was a wise man, wanted to bring him to a sense of humility, a sense of propriety. So he asked him, did you learn that? Do you know about that, by knowing which everything becomes known? He was implying, did you learn about Brahmavidya, the higher spiritual philosophy? Because that's not possible. Learning that's not possible if you just read a book. It's possible only if you go deeper into that book. And going deeper is possible only when you contemplate, when you reflect, when you introspect on what you read. Okay, that's me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Swami.
Yeah.
What I was struggling to remember was that Sanjay had put up the WhatsApp link, and that's very useful for getting updates and changes on class information.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, Sanjay.
I also wanted to join in wishing Prajwal best of luck in his next journey, next moves. Sanjay, your hand is up, and then Mark.
It's Mark first. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
Pranam Swamiji.
Yeah.
Good evening. In your talk this evening, you gave a couple of examples of Sri Ramakrishna's teachings.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it would be all right if I asked you a question
Yeah, please.
about something that I've read in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, so you could clarify it for me.
Yeah,
Would that be okay?
Yeah, please. Most welcome.
Okay. So he's talking about the manifestation of the glory of the primordial energy, the primordial consciousness. He says this primordial power, Mahamaya, has covered Brahman. As soon as the covering is withdrawn, one realizes, I am what I was before. I am thou, thou art I. He goes on to say, as long as that covering remains, the Vedantic formula, I am he, that is, man is the supreme Brahman, does not rightly apply. The wave is part of the water, but the water is not part of the wave. As long as that covering remains, one should call on God as mother.
Yeah.
And I'm just, abbreviating it, but what I want to ask you about is this phrase, the wave is part of the water,
Yeah.
but the water is not part of the wave.
Yeah.
What's
Okay.
that? How can the wave not be part of the wave?
I shall explain. And just before explaining that, addressing the question, one important announcement I forgot, it seems. There will be no class on September 8th, Sunday, because I will be traveling outside California. There will be no class on Sunday, September 8th. Please remember. Sunday, September 8th, there will be no class. So that's an important point. Now coming to the question. So, the waves and the ocean. Without the waves, the ocean can exist. But without the ocean, the waves cannot exist. What we call wave is the same as ocean. The water that we call the ocean, that takes a different form, like a maybe big, high collection of water that manifests as a wave. That exists. Even when you see the wave is only ocean. The waves cannot exist independent of ocean. But ocean can certainly exist independent of wave. Ocean does exist, will be able to exist without the waves. Waves will not be able to exist without the ocean. And actually, put in other words, suppose you have a pot made of clay on your table. You remove all the clay from the pot, there will be no pot. But the clay can exist without the pot. Yeah. Because what you call a clay pot is nothing but a form given by pot maker to a clay, so you call it a different name. You call it a pot because it's a different shape. So name. So what you call wave is nothing but the ocean. This comes in one of Shankaracharya's stotras also. It comes. Yeah.
So it's not just water; it's ocean, and we're referring to the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Swami.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sanjay.
Maharaj, I will share a couple of reflections on today's wonderful lecture, which summarizes Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, and Dvaita. And I have an important question for maybe a clarification. One is, Mark was asking, David, I think we all go through Shvetaketu moment in our lives, listening to all of the Dvaita. And then for me, this Madhvacharya thing and understanding the objective subjective meditation in a different session made me realize how far away I am on a good meditation technique. So Dvaita, and also that connects to the gradient you mentioned. We are all different stages. So those are the reflections, Maharaj. But my question is, you talked about the dharma, like Arjuna also, right? And then you go to the Brahma Jigyasa, right? You go to that. Now, we are in an age, right? Economy is booming. There is so much making all ends meet for everybody. So when is the time? Like Arjuna also wanted to go to the mountains or whatever. He didn't want to fight Kurukshetra. So he was asked by Krishna to do his dharma. So the question is, there is a balance between the Brahma Jigyasa and not fulfilling your duties in a way. Can you guide us a little bit more clarity? I think I know the answer, but a little bit more context will help for all of us.
Yeah. So one may wonder that if you take to Brahma Jignasa, inquiring into the nature of Brahman is absolute reality, the fundamental questions of human life, one may become prone to neglecting his duty. Really it doesn't happen. So even when you become a knower of Brahman, when you reach the highest, most exalted state of spiritual enlightenment, you will not neglect your duty. Only you go beyond the idea that I am doing this, it is for my benefit I am doing this, I want to enjoy the fruits of my actions. You will not be clinging to your actions and the desire to enjoy the fruits of your action, the results of your actions. That absence of desire and identity with your actions and this attachment that comes along with that identity, that will be totally absent. That will be the only difference between an active person living this world and a Brahmajnani. Many of the great Brahmajnanis, I repeat what I said many times in the past. I think if you look at the sheer volume of the work that Shankaracharya did, I don't think India has ever produced anyone who accomplished so much as much as Shankaracharya. Think of this, all the monastic orders you find in India, all the Vedic institutions that you find in India, the Vedanta philosophy that we are discussing today would not have existed before Shankaracharya. Can you imagine, for example, just think of visualize the scenario. At least Shankaracharya had not come in 8th century and not founded this Vedanta metaphysics the way he did. You know, the entire Vedic literature would have been misunderstood to be just a call for performing rituals. Just imagine that. What Swami Vivekananda brought to this country in 1893, what after Vivekananda so many other spiritual teachers tried to follow Vivekananda's path, whether it is Paramahamsa Yogananda in his own way, whether it is the Divine Society in its own way, Swami Chinmayananda in his own way, and many other organizations are trying to do in their own ways today. They are talking about some higher transcendental spiritual philosophy that comes from Vedic tradition. That spiritual philosophy as a spiritual philosophy was a creation of Shankaracharya. If you remove Shankaracharya from the scenario, what you get is a group of old pot-bellied Brahmins with the rituals, performing rituals, asking, pleading to different deities, gods and goddesses for money, for wealth, for a long life. That is the message of Vedas according to Vedic Pandits, Mimamsakas, when Shankaracharya was born. When he left, the scenario changed completely. He had left behind a system of philosophy which tells you that Vedas are talking about a universal spiritual philosophy of unity and oneness of existence. And that is the purpose of, to realize that truth is the purpose of human life. Of course, it doesn't mean that you should neglect your duty, you leave your home behind. No, not at all. Even in the Upanishad Bhashyas, which Shankaracharya wrote commentaries, many of the great teachers of Vedanta are not monks. There are enlightened kings, Ashwapati, Janaka. They were all enlightened monks. Even Uddalaka, he was an householder. He was not a monk living somewhere. He was a very enlightened householder who was teaching the highest Vedanta philosophy to his son. So it was not a life-negating philosophy. So just imagine, and that's one thing. And the most wonderful devotional hymns in Sanskrit language, Shankaracharya. 4 monasteries in 4 different corners of India, maybe 5 including Kanchi. And then traveling all over India 4 times. And then thousands of debates with different teachers of Buddhism, hedonism, atheism, agnosticism, Charvakas, Buddhas, Mimamsakas, and so on. But he was only asking them, please give me this pleasure of debating with you. There's a funny episode in Shankara Digvijaya Vidyaranya. Shankaracharya was a man of, not a man, but a boy of maybe 13-year-old, 15-year-old. He crossed over the fence of Mandana. He was an old man performing rituals. He wanted money, wealth and status. Old wife, they were doing that. So Shankaracharya appeared before them. So first he thought, a monk has come, I shall give you food. Bhiksha. Bhiksha means, food. Went to a monk. No, I want only Vada Bhiksha. Means, you give me food, that food should be a kind of argument. I want to debate with you. That's the food you are going to give me, not cooked rice. And this man went all over India, started monastic orders, 10 monastic orders, installed temples, and taught you how to perform your puja, Sadhusasti Pujara Puja Stotram, all within 32 years. So, and he was the one who taught you a philosophy that goes beyond karma, and himself was an embodiment of karma. So what kind of karma was he doing? A karma which without the sense of kartrutta, bhoktrutta, means sense of doership and sense of enjoyership. So, now a little bit of that you can practice in your office in Bay Area, if you are an IT specialist, if you are a doctor, if you are an engineer, you can practice that detachment. Be active. And at this end, Swami Tirunadayananda could build the very temple in which I am sitting right now giving these classes. 13 years he lived here. He did everything without a sense of attachment. And in a way that is true with regard to many of the great teachers in different non-Hindu, non-Vedantic traditions. Only there is not the articulation of it as karma yoga. All great spiritual teachers with Christ or Buddha, they were also karma yogis. It's a very important thing. But it was given a very philosophical spiritual articulation. and the format of a compact philosophical metaphysical system by Shankaracharya. And can you see that he did not do any work? That's why there are quite a few statements that goes to Kulapati K. M. Munshi was the founder of Bharati Vidyavan, and Dr. Radhakrishnan, he writes in his philosophy, second volume, to the end of discussion on Shankara philosophy, he talks about the great work of Shankara, the huge amount of work he did. Sister Nivedita, I already quoted many times in the past. Sister Nivedita writes, and many Gandhi writes, so the sheer volume of work that he did. So, I can imagine. Okay, so that's
Maharaj.
Yeah.
Maharaj, were you concluded on that response?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about immanence as well as transcendence.
Yeah.
So, to an Advaitin, there's of course the Atman and the immanence. It seems philosophically logical to suggest that there really can't be a profound transcendence without immanence.
Yeah.
And that there really can't be a full experience of immanence without transcendence.
Yeah.
And so the postulate philosophically is that they're the same, and the consequences of that are so obvious in a way when you speak about Shankaracharya and his life, and even the experience we have in this class, where we ask questions and share and learn together. We still have our own processes, thoughts, and internal life, but we also are sharing the experience of learning together. So it just seems to be a complete system that seems completely obvious. I don't know whether that's because of my own background, but whenever students are gathering to discuss these ideas, I think debate may be too ferocious a word, but when the students are asking each other questions and then studying on their own as well, it just seems as though it's all part of the same thing, that the transcendence and the immanence are one.
Yeah.
The other philosophers, without any disrespect, it doesn't ring true. It doesn't ring as true. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. No, you are right. So I shall try to speak a few words about this immanence, omnipresence, and transcendence. Now,
Thank you.
in Vedanta, it expounds this idea of omnipresence through immanence, omnipresence through immanence, and then transcendence. Suppose you don't include transcendence, there is always the possibility of it becoming some kind of pantheism or pantheism. So, if you just talk about omnipresence, it can be misunderstood as a kind of pantheism, because the empirical world equated to God or divine. If you talk about immanence alone, then also it can be to pantheism, the immanence and omnipresence together. But then the absolute reality is also a matter of inner experience, and that experience transcends the empirical. It is not experience at the empirical level. It is an experience at the transcendental level. So transcendence through immanence, that is the emphasis here. So even this, Purusha Suktam, Sahasrasha Sahasrapad, Sabhumim Visudu Avrutva, Avrutva means Avrutva, Atyadishta Deshangulam. So you find in this Purusha Sukta, is 10th mandala of Rigveda. So first, there is this the reference to some kind of a omnipresence, Sahasrasha Sahasrapad, means that absolute reality. It has got Sahasra doesn't mean 1000, means innumerable, means it has eyes, it has innumerable eyes, innumerable feet, innumerable. It is all pervading, and at the same time, it is called the Purusha. Purusha actually means Purushededi Purushaka, means that divine spark that is residing within this body, which has got 9 doors opening outside, 9 doors, the physical body. In this physical body, there is something which is not physical. There is the spiritual, the transcendental, immanent reality within. But at the same time, Atyadishta Dashangvilam, it also projects outside, means going beyond empirical, beyond the omnipresent and beyond the immanent, but the transcendental. So the combination of these 3 aspects, that is immanence, omnipresence and transcendence. And this is the genius of Shankaracharya. Now remember, Madhvacharya fully accepted immanence. According to Madhvacharya, Vishnu, now Shiva Narayana, God is within all of us. And so in that respect, there is a kind of identity, God is within us, but still different. So it is, still there is a difference. But now, Shankaracharya goes beyond empirical, because so long as you are at the empirical level, you cannot really say that the supreme divinity is within me. You cannot say that. Or I am the supreme being, essentially, intrinsically, because according to Ramanuja also, within me there is this divine spark, but still I am totally different. There is identity, there is non-difference, there is also difference. Apradasiddhi called in their language. But Shankaracharya says, beyond the empirical, at the highest, what we may call mystical, because lack of a better word, at the transcendental level, it is transcendental. That means it is non-different from that absolute reality. So, what you said is correct. Advaita, in a way, Advaita can be explained in terms of these 3 terms, which are often used in metaphysical systems, that is immanence and transcendence. But in this context, omnipresence also. That's why in Sanskrit it's called Antaryami, mean immanent, Sarvantaryami or Sarvavyapi, as omnipresent or pervading, and transcendental, that is Sarvatita, going beyond words, going beyond empirical. It can only be experienced. So when you say Advaita is not a name of a philosophy, it is actually something that can only be called an experience. You are actually talking about something transcendental using the language of the immanence. That's the idea behind it. Okay,
Thank you very much. Very clear. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bobby, for that question. And so I want to repeat again, there will be no class on September 8 because I will be away at that time. And please remember, for RSVP, Labor Day retreat Saturday to Monday, that is August 31st to September 2nd, Vedanta retreat, Ulima. We have a wonderful retreat, more than 2,000 acres of land, which includes fields, mountains, forests. Is a national park system. You are most welcome. But unfortunately, we won't be able to provide accommodation because accommodation is possible only for a small, limited number of volunteers who are helping us to make this happen. But you are most welcome to attend. Thank you. Namaskar.
Maharaj, there is no lecture on September
Next Sunday.
1st,
Next Sunday means?
onwards
Next
because
Sunday?
of the retreat.
Yeah? Oh, I want to mention to you, next Sunday is 25th. Next Sunday, 25th, we have class. Only we have no class on 8th September because I was talking in the context of Labor Day retreat. Okay?
And September 1st, because of Labor Day retreat, there is no session on that day also.
On 1st September, we have no class, and 8th September. Okay? Just want to repeat. Next Sunday, 25th, we have class as usual. Thank you. Namaskar. So thank you Sanjay, thank you Bobby, and also we must again, once more, we have to thank Naman, who is going to take the responsibility in the coming years, and also Prajwal, who for all the great work he did. Thank you.
Yeah, I have one, but mine's older. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's the new one.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.